Hello, welcome back to Snugglewood, young Dreamlynx. My name is Arin. Snuggle down into your coziest quilt and let tonight's calming tale and soothing sounds relieve you of any worries and guide you towards a deep, restful night's sleep under these beautiful stars above. And so our story begins in a place called Hearthstone Hamlet, and the sleepy giant tale of healing rocks. Hearthstone Hamlet was a place of serene enchantment, tucked away within an expansive valley surrounded by evergreen hills. The early morning light would stretch over the hamlet like a warm blanket, and the soothing flow of the nearby Azure Creek weaved melodies through its cobblestone paths. The giants, harmonious and kind, thrived within this picture of tranquility, but it was the story of the healing rocks that set Hearthstone apart. There were no mere stones, yet they rested quietly in an unassuming grotto, a part of what the villagers revered as the magical legacy of the sleepy giant. Legend spoke of a time long past when the towering guardian of the valley roamed these lands. A giant with hands said to cradle the forest and feet strong enough to shape the rugged ridges of the hills. This giant was said to have once carried a troubled spirit, wandering endlessly through the lands, searching for understanding and peace. While on this quest, it discovered a hidden grove where nature's harmony was untainted. There, within the heart of the grove, were glistening rocks unlike any others. These so-called healing rocks radiated warmth and brought a comforting presence. The giant found solace among them, resting peacefully for the first time in ages. Over many years, the energy of the sleepy giant fused with the stones, leaving behind an essence that the villagers believed carried both wisdom and healing. The grotto where the rocks remained was a closely guarded treasure. Though nestled within the forest and accessible by wandering paths, the grotto welcomed only those in search of something important. As the townsfolk explained it, the rocks didn't offer material rewards, but instead brought clarity during moments of unease and peace during storms of the heart. Many had stories of how time near the rocks shifted their perspective or soothed burdens weighing on their spirits. Among those who frequently visited the grotto was a young Dreamlynx named Kale. He was often seen spinning tales for the villagers. Despite his lively, imaginative mind, Kale had a restless heart, one that could never quite know contentment. He found his solace along the forest paths, venturing to the hidden place to sit near the rocks. Kale didn't understand the presence of the healing rocks, but when he rested there, he felt free from the knots of uncertainty tangling his thoughts. One day, as storm clouds gathered over Hearthstone Hamlet, Cale felt an irresistible pull to the grotto. The villagers preparing for the rain glanced at him with concern, urging him not to stray into the woods under gloomy skies. Yet Cale's heart guided him forward. The paths leading to the healing rocks seemed more alive that day, their trees arching towards each other as if to create a protective corridor. The boy's steps were steady as he entered the clearing where the grotto resided. The rocks appeared just as they always had, yet something was different. Cale sat quietly, feeling the air shift with a deep calm that extended beyond the edges of the grotto. For hours Cale lingered there, completely unaware of how much time had passed. When he finally left, hours later, the storm was now gone, leaving the hamlet untouched. Cale returned to find the villagers mystified by his calm demeanour. That visit to Healing Rocks was a turning point for Cale. Over the years, he became known far beyond Hearthstone Hamlet for his wisdom. When travellers questioned how someone so young could understand life so clearly, Cale would offer no explanation. He lived with the spirit of one who had shared a magical secret with the forest and wanted only to pass its peace forward. The Healing Rocks remained nestled in their grotto, untethered from the passing of time. Many, like Cale, ventured inward, guided by their own paths. Each one emerged with unity in their heart, a reminder that even during chaos, serenity could be found if one listened closely to the whispers within. The air carried a timeless quality, each breeze brushing through the ancient trees as if the land were breathing with quiet intention. Animals moved gently through the underbush, neither hurried nor timid, as though they too had come to understand the stillness the sacred place offered. Time folded upon itself here, a moment stretching infinitely and yet flowing like a river toward unseen horizons. Cale sometimes returned to the grotto, not out of a need to reclaim the serenity he once found, but to honor it. Each visit felt like an offering, a sharing of his presence with a place that had already given him so much. He would often sit cross-legged upon the moss-covered stone at the grotto's edge, allowing the living heartbeat of the forest to seep into him. It was not words or thoughts that emerged, but simply a profound knowing, a connection deeper than any spoken creed could convey. The forest began to attract others, not by tales spread or maps drawn. Something indescribable called to wandering hearts, as if the stillness Cale once invited into himself now radiated outward, brushing against souls adrift in search of meaning. They came not in groups, but alone or in pairs, approaching the grotto with quiet reverence, rather than simple curiosity. Some carried burdens they could not name, while others bore sorrow so sharp it echoed in their steps. Others came simply to be, unshackled from any expectations by the world outside the trees. Among these travellers was Ira, a woman whose eyes carried the weight of distant storms. She navigated the forest with the caution of someone unaccustomed to trusting their path, as if each step forward might give way beneath her feet. But the winds guided her as surely as they had Kael, and soon enough she reached the narrow opening that led into the grotto. She hesitated for a moment before stepping inside, her breath catching at the sight. The healing rocks appeared as though they had been waiting for her all along. Their surfaces glistened with the softened hues of the earth, flecked with patterns and marks that seemed infinitely natural, but layered with meaning beyond comprehension. Ira did not touch them at first. Instead, she sat nearby, allowing herself to feel the weight of the space, the way it cradled her unease while asking nothing in return. Her hands rested loosely on her knees. Her breath deepened. And for the first time in years, she felt still. The transformation that unfolded within her was not a sudden one, not like the turning of a page or the flash of an epiphany. It was gradual, like the unfurling of a leaf beneath cautious morning light. With each moment spent in the grotto, her sorrow softened. The jagged edges of her memories, once sharp and unyielding, began to smooth into curves she could carry more comfortably. She emerged after an unknown span of time, her face streaked with tears, but her shoulders unbowed. Without realizing it, she placed her hand on the nearest tree as she left, a gesture both of gratitude and unity. Others came, each carrying their own stories. They sat in the presence of the healing rocks, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for days. The forest held them all, steadfast and unchanging in its quiet guardianship. Some found clarity or peace, while others left with only a whisper of change, as if the seeds of transformation had been planted but were yet to bloom. But none emerged untouched. The presence of the grotto, ancient and unjudging, lingered within them like the scent of pine after a fresh rain. Kael, though he visited less frequently, came to understand the greater pattern unfolding in the forest. This place, long hidden from hurried footsteps and restless thoughts, had opened itself as willingly as he once did. It was as though the grotto and its stones had extended an invitation, not written or spoken, but felt in the deepest chambers of the heart. It was not the kind of place to be found by accident, but by necessity. Seasons turned, and the landscape shifted accordingly. Autumn's golden light seeped through the thinning canopy, casting long, dappled shadows along the forest floor. Winter's frost dusted the stones and left delicate patterns on the brilliant green moss. Spring returned with chaotic beauty, carpeting the ground in wildflowers and filling the air with perpetual birdsong. And summer brought its steady warmth, like a wonderful glowing presence. Yet through it all, the healing rocks remained the same. Not immutable, but deeply eternal, as though they belonged to a realm beyond the cycles of life and decay. One crisp morning, a little giant named Soren arrived. He was young, no more than 12, and his steps were swift but unpracticed. His wandering was not born of curiosity, but of restlessness. His spirit burned with a fire that sought direction. He reached the entrance to the grotto wide-eyed, momentarily frozen as he beheld the space. Though no sounds stirred within, Soren could feel something immense in the silence. The urge to run, born of both fear and wonder, pricked at the edges of his mind, but his feet remained rooted. Sitting hesitantly on the cool earth, Soren wondered why he had come. The forest seemed so alive around him, yet the stillness in the grotto was humbling. Time slowed, and the little giant became aware of his breathing, his heartbeat, even the blood thrumming in his veins. His young mind, often a churning sea of thoughts and excitement, quietened against his will. It felt like listening for an echo in a deep cave, waiting to hear his own essence call back to him. When he eventually stirred, his eyes glimmered not with the wild energy of youth, but with the tempered calm of someone who understood, even faintly, what it meant to belong to the world and its rhythm. The forest allowed its travelers to leave reminders of their presence. A carved initial on a fallen log, a wreath of leaves hung on a low branch. These gestures felt not like marks of claiming, but tokens of thanks, gifts for a place that had cradled so many weary souls. Cale noticed these small signs on his occasional visits and smiled, knowing the silent ways the grove wove itself into each life it touched. Though none claimed ownership or dominion over the healing rocks, a sense of shared stewardship arose amongst those who had walked the path there. And so the forest continued like it always did, its boundaries expanding not outward but inward, deep into the hearts of those it called. The healing rocks became more than stone. They became a symbol of the connection that exists in all things, of the quiet spaces within the chaos of life where serenity waits. Those who were fortunate enough to answer this call were forever changed, carrying the essence of the grotto in their hearts. And the forest, patient and eternal, continued to breathe, a sanctuary for all who sought its peace. The seasons turned and shifted as they always did, yet the grotto remained unaffected, holding on to a sense of timelessness that seemed to transcend the ordinary flow of days. Leaves fell and blanketed the soft ground in autumn, the air growing cooler, yet no chill penetrated the comforting circle drawn by the healing rocks. When winter approached with its frost-laden mornings and icy winds, the grotto somehow seemed warmer than the world beyond its borders. There was a sense of perpetual balance, as the space was cradled by the very elements it had woven itself into. Many tried to understand the grotto's mysteries, spending hours in focused contemplation, or carefully observing the way the light filtered through its brilliant canopy. Yet it resisted such scrutiny, offering no secrets beyond the simplest yet most profound truth. It was a place of rest, a sanctuary designed not to be unravelled or analysed, but to be experienced, simply and quietly. Those who came seeking answers often found themselves setting their questions down, as if they were boulders carried far too long, and walking away lighter than before. Time itself felt different when one was within the grotto. There were no sharp edges to the passing hours, no urgency pressing from the outside world. Some said the light within the space felt just a little softer, the colours of life just a shade more vivid, not in a way that overwhelmed, but in a way that felt right, natural. The flow of the forest around the healing rocks seemed slower, attuned to an older, quieter tempo. Birds perched atop branches near the edges of the space, their songs relaxed and unhurried. Even the flowers and ferns lining the clearing's edge swayed as if touched by a gentleness unlike any outside wind. And the healing rocks themselves, they appeared as they always had, solid, enduring, and deeply rooted in both the earth and the lives of those who came to them. Their surfaces weathered with time, yet shone with a quiet, enduring energy. Those who rested against them or traced the smooth curves with their fingertips often described an indescribable sense of assurance, as if the stones held memories far older and wiser than any living being could fathom. Occasionally, stories would emerge from those who visited the grotto, tales of vivid dreams or insights gained without effort. These stories carried with them echoes of a shared experience. Gratitude bloomed here, not from grand realizations, but from deep, quiet knowing. These moments were fleeting yet powerful. The wildlife of the forest revered the grotto in its own way. Deer often wandered close, but never passed its boundary, pausing instead to graze lightly at its fringes. Birds seemed to linger when they flew over, as though savouring the air near the space. Even the smallest creatures, ants weaving intricate pathways through mosses and mushrooms growing along the tree bases, moved with intention near the enclosure, as if mindful of a presence they could not name. Those who left the grotto carried traces of its spirit long after they returned to the demands of their lives. Changes were subtle, but undeniable. The way they approached everyday routines shifted slightly, marked by more patience and grace. Stress that once clung tenaciously seemed to loosen its grip, replaced by an anchor of calm that could be revisited simply by closing one's eyes and recalling the soothing stillness of the forest. Newfound appreciation often emerged, a recognition of fleeting moments, the sound of leaves brushing gently in the wind, or the way sunlight filtered softly at dawn. For some, the healing rocks inspired creativity, unlocking something deep within. Artists spoke of visions that surfaced as they sat quietly in its presence. Paintings rendered more vibrant, melodies composed with the fluidity of a flowing stream, and words written with clarity that seemed to flow from somewhere beyond themselves. Others found resolution to inner struggles, not through effort, but through the simple act of letting go. Within the timeless confines of the grotto, letting go was as natural as exhaling, as seamless as a leaf falling softly to the earth. The forest itself, vast and unknowing, enfolded the grotto in a way that was protective yet open. Paths leading to the healing rocks were never marked, yet they always seemed to reveal themselves to those earnestly searching. Branches parting to create openings, dappled light guiding the weary and lost. The forest was large enough to seem endless, yet it welcomed all who entered, offering its solace without restraint for those who approached with respect. Visitors often said that while the rocks lay at its heart, the forest as a whole seemed to murmur softly, in tune with their presence, as if supporting the sanctuary in its purpose. There were solitary connections made to the grotto, with some finding it alone in moments of heavy-heartedness. But there were also those who discovered it alongside others, friends, families, or kindred spirits who came to share in the calm it provided. The shared silence beneath the canopy was no less meaningful than the individual experience, forging bonds deeper than words could articulate. The forest surrounded these gatherings as though holding the moments tenderly. Over the years, whispers of the grotto spread far and wide, carried from one grateful soul to the next. Yet, despite its growing reputation, it remained serene, never overrun, never harmed by Dreamlynx hands or intentions. Perhaps it was the forest's own quiet governance that ensured it would not be spoiled. Its trails twisting in intricate patterns, revealing and concealing themselves to preserve the sanctity of the space within. Those who were not ready to encounter the grotto would find themselves turned around, meeting dead ends where paths had seemed clear moments before. It was a gentle kind of protection, allowing the sanctuary to exist as it always had, untouched and unburdened by the outside world. The healing rocks endured through it all, through storms that shook the treetops far above, and rains that fed the mosses at their base. Snow dusted their surfaces, melting almost immediately as though warmth radiated from within. Sunlight bathed them each morning, and the shadows of the trees danced around them as hours turned to dusk. Yet their reach extended far deeper than stone or soil. The peace they offered rippled outwards, just as surely as the farthest roots of the mightiest trees sink deep into the nourishing earth. This was the eternal truth of the grotto. It offered a chance deeper than the rest, softer than healing, older than memory. A chance to be still, a chance to remember. And in that stillness, amidst all the chaos that churned beyond its borders, life at the very center of it all, simply, quietly continued.